Hey guys, Dr. Morse, injury experts. So we just finished up week 3. There were some huge injuries as we head into week 4, not including many of the guys that are currently injured and a couple guys that may be returning from injury. Starting off with quarterbacks, there was only one new quarterback injury this week. It was San Francisco 49ers. Mac Jones suffered a re-injury to that PCL sprain that he had in preseason. The semi-good news is that he potentially would be able to sit, and Brock Purdy would be able to come back to his starting role, who's dealing with that left AC sprain as well as that right turf toe injury. It's too soon to know, but there's a decent chance that Purdy will be back in week 4. Now, major significant running back injuries. Unfortunately, Najee Harris suffered a season-ending Achilles tear, the second Achilles tear of the season. I'm working on a article about these because we're seeing a huge uptick between last year and the year before, as well as this year. James Conner suffered a foot fracture. We don't know if it was foot or ankle or both. All we know is that is season ending, and unfortunately, that is going to, and his season is going to transition to Trey Benson, who's probably going to get about 65 to 70% of the work, so he becomes an immediate huge waiver wire ad if he's not already on your team or someone else's. In terms of Tyrone Tracy, suffered a shoulder dislocation in the Sunday night game. Now, 2 defenders came in, one came in this way, and one came in this way, and he popped his shoulder out. Now, this is basically the same thing that happened to Xavier Worthy a couple weeks ago. Now, these have a tendency to tear the labrum, which is basically like a clock, where noon would be here, 3 o'clock here, 6 armpit, 9 o'clock in the back. Traditionally, these either tear noon to 3 or noon to 9 posteriorly, sometimes the whole top. As far as how long he's going to be out, traditionally these take a minimum of 2 weeks, sometimes 4+ weeks, and he will return with a brace. You've probably seen Xavier Worthy wearing one where he had it on his arm to prevent the shoulder from popping out. The problem is the more instability these cause, the more difficulty these guys have with catching. And the other issue is when they run into people, the risk of re-popping out is very high. So Tyrone Tracy is very high risk for re-injury when he does come back. That's going to give Cam Scatterbo and former FAU Devin Singletary the opportunity to shine here. Scatterbo looked really good. I think he could be this year's Bucky Irving. Samaje Perine injured his thumb, but it sounds like it's relatively mild and he'll be back. But Chase Brown has really struggled. He's a good buy low, but I don't really like the way this offense is running. But I also think that Brian Flores knew exactly what he was doing, and that's why it looked so bad last week. Biggest injury of the week is CeeDee Lamb. Suffered a left high ankle sprain, maybe a little bit of a medial ankle sprain as well. This is probably more of a grade 2 than a grade 1. He's been able to stay really healthy. Last year, he had that kind of shoulder injury, but he ended his season early, probably could have played through it. But now this, unfortunately, cannot play through. Now, minimum out 2 weeks, potentially 3 or 4, just depending on how quickly he ramps up. Now, the issue with these is that oftentimes for the first couple days to a week, you can't even put your foot on the ground without pain. And then you can finally start to put weight on it, and then you can run straight. But the problem is you can't cut, and you can't turn aggressively in those cuts. We also saw their lineman suffer the same injury. He's going to be out for probably a month, especially given how big the size of those guys are. It's a lot harder to come back. And then we're probably going to see a little bit of a tough stretch here. So George Pickens becomes either a sell high or a hold, and just say, hey, he's probably going to get the volume that we're hoping for. Maybe Kevontae Turpin becomes a guy to consider. Jake Ferguson is definitely a guy to consider. Mike Evans suffered a hamstring strain, his 8th hamstring strain that I have note of. Last time he did this, I believe it was last year, he missed, I think it was a total of 3 or 4 games. This, we don't know the severity. It sounds like it's more of a milder grade 1 than a moderate grade 2. So in that regard, I think there's a decent chance he may only miss probably 2 weeks or maybe a week. That would be super lucky. I know he doesn't want to go into the IR, although he is, 30, 31, 32. It's a lot harder to heal at that age. So we will see Emeka Egbuka kind of take over as the primary, and he might end up going out wide now, whereas Chris Godwin could potentially make his debut in week 4, which would put him back into the slot, is my guess. But my guess is that we're going to see Mike Evans miss at least 1 week, potentially multiple weeks, and he will still be at increased risk for re-injury. This is the issue with an aging wide receiver with multiple soft tissue injuries, a la Julio Jones. As far as Terry McLaurin suffered a quad injury, we don't know if it's a quad strain, which would be bad, or a quad bruise. If it's quad bruise, I'm not overly concerned he'll play this week. If it's a quad strain, he's probably going to miss a couple weeks. These are traditionally notorious for re-injury and for just re-aggravation. They do not heal well, only because actually the blood supply is almost too good and it ends up causing a lot of bleeding. So we'll keep an eye on if he ends up practicing in a limited capacity sometime tomorrow, Wednesday, then we're in good shape. But if he's not able to practice at all this week, I don't think he's going to be able to play. Obviously, Debo would get more love. We might even see Jaden Daniels sit for another week, which will lead Marcus Mariota another potential game. In terms of Alec Pierce, suffered a concussion. We'll see how he does with the concussion protocol. Diami Brown with an AC sprain, 50-50 to play this upcoming week. And then for tight ends, we saw Colston Loveland with a hip injury, probably a hip flexor, we call it. Unlikely to be a labrum injury or unlikely to be a hip pointer, which is a bruise. He had a monster play or a couple plays, and the talent is there. We'll have to see if he's able to suit up this week. I would probably hold off on him for a couple weeks until we get him. We saw how bad Brock Bowers has struggled for the past 2 weeks. We saw how struggling, how difficult with the Tucker Kraft, how he struggled this past week. So remember, these tight ends coming off these injuries, it's a lot harder. So you just don't assume, oh, they're active, you have to smash them. Michael Mayer with a concussion, Noah Fant with a concussion, and then Jatavion Sanders, the potential breakout tight end for the Carolina Panthers, unfortunately suffered a high ankle sprain himself. Probably going to miss anywhere from 2 to 4+ weeks. They might even put him on IR. Jalen Coker should be back at hopefully the next week or two, which would be a nice sneaky buy low if you can. But Jatavion was having a really good season. We'll kind of go from there. I will let you know more when we hear more tomorrow. We got all brand new injuries that dropped that we don't know about yet. These are just the ones that I've been able to gather and that were pretty obvious. But I've done a bunch of individual videos. Check them out if you like them. It was a bunch of deep dive analysis, injury specifics, percentages of likelihood to play for the premium members over at the Injury Experts. We will see you later this week. Good luck.